Oh my God. Oh my
Miami
God.
County 911.
Oh my, somebody broke into my home. Somebody broke into my home
Okay.
and shot my wife.
New 911 audio behind the alleged bombshell twist that seemingly no one in a tiny Ohio town would have expected.
My wife she got 2 shots to her head.
An arrest in the case of a beloved mom, coach, and wife shot dead in the middle of the night. Police initially said that she was the victim of an apparent burglary that turned violent. Or was she? The man so many people swore would never do something like this is now under arrest and charged with her murder.
Sir, I just want to take care of my daughters. I'm not at risk. I understand.
Her husband. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. When I tell you, when this news broke, my jaw dropped. Not only is Ashley Flynn's husband, a former pastor and worship leader and American Idol contestant, charged with her murder, he's accused of going to great lengths to cover it up. I just got the 911 call that was made around 2:30 in the morning from the home of Ashley Flynn. It's her husband on the phone in a panic. Let's start from the beginning.
Oh my, somebody broke into my home. Somebody broke into my home and shot my wife.
Are they still in there?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, what's the address?
932 Cunningham Court, Kent City, Ohio. Please hurry. Please hurry.
Okay.
That is Caleb Flynn, who claims a burglar came in and shot his wife. He gets specific about it.
What are you seeing?
My wife she's got 2 shots to her head. There's blood everywhere. Oh my God. Sir, please.
Ma'am, I need you to take a deep breath, okay? Do you still see anybody in the house?
No, the door to the garage was wide open. Please hurry, please. Oh my God. My daughters are here. My daughters are here.
Where's she at?
She's in the bed.
Are you with her?
I am in the room. I'm looking at her. Yes, please.
Okay. Do you guys have the door locked?
We have the doors to the garage locked, but into the house, yes. Please. Oh my God. Please.
Where is that room at in the house? My partner's getting them dispatched, okay? But I need you to answer my questions so I can get you help as fast as I can, okay?
What question?
Where are you guys at in the house?
I'm in the bedroom with her right now.
Okay.
My daughters are in their room.
So you are not with the children?
I was with the children when it happened.
Okay, but you're not with them now?
No, they're in their room. They're not even awake. Oh my God.
So there you see, there's a little confusion on the line about where the children are in the home and where he is in the house. And he says that the children are still asleep, even though their mom had been shot by someone he says came into the home and then escaped. It really stands out to me that he is not running into their room to go check on them. And he just says they're still asleep. Here's what he said about where Ashley is. He says she's dead in the bed.
Are you hearing anything?
No, I've rubbed her leg and said her name. She's not answering.
Okay. Your daughter's not answering you?
I'm sorry. No. Hold on. I'm putting on her shirt. What'd you say?
Your daughter's not answering you?
No, they're across the room.
Okay.
In their room.
Okay. Are you hearing any kind of noise inside the house?
No, her face is, her face is white as good ghost. Please hurry.
Okay. Whose face?
My wife's face.
Your wife's face?
The one who was shot.
She was what?
Shot, I said.
Okay, where was she shot at?
In the head. I hope there's blood everywhere.
Okay, is she breathing?
I don't think so. Ashley, baby, please. Oh my God, she's not.
Okay, she's not responding to you?
No.
Police believe what you're hearing in this recording is allegedly an act, that this is the person who shot and killed his wife. That is what he is being accused of. It is interesting that he knows the specific amount of shots that hit his wife. And also notice how he doesn't directly go in to check on the kids. Then at the end of this part of the recording, police arrive.
What do I do? What do I do? What do I do?
Is she breathing at all?
I don't think so. There's 2 shots to her head.
Okay. If you are comfortable, I want you to go and find a cloth, and I want you to put a cloth on that gunshot wound, okay?
Like a towel?
Yes, like a towel, but do not apply direct pressure to it. Just put it on that blood wound, okay?
Okay. Oh my God. Oh my, okay.
I need you to just take a deep breath for me, okay?
Okay. Okay.
Just get that cloth, and I want you to put it on that wound, but don't apply direct pressure to it, okay? They're coming to you as quick as they can, okay?
I just laid it on her head.
Okay. Where are the juveniles? Are they okay? Have you checked on them?
I haven't checked on them.
Okay. Can you go check on the juveniles for me?
The police is here. The police is here.
Okay. Can you go check on the juveniles for me?
Wait, the cops just pulled over. They just left. They just left.
Okay. I need you to go check on the juveniles for me, okay?
They're still sleeping. They're still sleeping.
Okay, you still see them breathing? You don't see any wounds on them?
No. The cop just pulled over. Sir. The cop is here.
Okay, I want you to... Okay, open the door for him so he can get into her, okay?
Okay, he's coming to me. Sir! Please, sir! What? I don't know. The door to the garage door was wide open. I'm her husband. No, I don't think so.
Any murder case is shocking, but it always stands out to me when you look into someone's background and it appears they have never really been in trouble with the law before. And that appears to be the case with Caleb Flynn, former pastor, former American Idol contestant, a dad, and a husband, now accused of murder. I looked him up with truthfinder.com, and it doesn't appear that he has any sort of criminal record. He has a couple traffic tickets, but that's it. No, we use Truthfinder here at Law and Crime for the public record searches that we do for our stories. It saves us a lot of research time so we can focus on reporting crime, not paperwork. And you can use this tool as well, Truthfinder. You type in a name and you can find addresses like we just did here, criminal history, and much more. It's our go-to tool for checks, and it's one of the largest search services in the United States. And with a subscription, you get unlimited confidential searches to check on new neighbors, maybe people you meet online, or you can find someone to reconnect with. You can also look up registered sex offenders nearby, or even do a background search on yourself. Stay informed, stay safe. Check public records with Truthfinder now at truthfinder.com/OTC. Ashley was 37 years old, a mom to 2 beautiful girls. She was a wife to someone who appeared to be a loving husband, a person who was once a worship leader at a local church. And a murder in a town like Tip City, a small town, everybody knows everybody. It just is something that doesn't often happen, especially to someone who seemed so beloved by her community. And she knew this community because she grew up there in this tiny town north of Dayton. Ashley's obituary said that she was, quote, a shining light of joy to all who crossed her path, effortlessly encouraging others along the way. Let's be clear, those are not just some nice words that someone wrote in a memorial. It appears to be exactly who Ashley was, the way that she lived, a way where she always put others first. She was a substitute teacher in the public school system. She was also a 7th grade volleyball coach. And on top of that, she was an active volunteer at her church. And that's why police initially said that it appeared that Ashley was the victim of an alleged burglary that went wrong, that turned violent, that something happened in this home and this person that broke in to take something out of their house had a gun and shot Ashley. Part of the evidence that investigators pointed to were the signs of forced entry into the Flynn's home, but they haven't been specific of what that entry looks like. You heard in the 911 call that the garage door was open. In the words of the Tip City police chief on Monday, as everyone was coming to grips with what had happened, this was, quote, a burglary gone wrong. Police rushed to the scene. They actually put up drones. They enlisted the help of canines to try and track down this person who came into the house, allegedly killed Ashley, and then fled. But there was no sight of a bad guy, no scent picked up by the dogs. Now, let's talk about this marriage, because Ashley and Caleb appeared to be a loving couple. It's cliche, but they were the perfect couple. In fact, look at Ashley's Facebook picture, the two of them on the water. There are several pictures of them as this happy family raising their daughters in the town where Ashley grew up. Caleb, he appeared to be a man of faith. He was once a worship leader and also a musician at the church where Ashley was also once on staff. He and Ashley are graduates of Lee University in Tennessee, which is a private Christian college. It appears that's where they met. Now, Caleb also is apparently quite the musician. In fact, in 2013, he auditioned on American Idol. And I bring that up not just because it's shocking that someone who was featured on the show would be accused of this, but according to the Dayton Daily News, on the episode where he tries out, and they did a little part of the episode where they interviewed him, he is quoted as saying, quote, "I love my wife more than anything. She is very, very pretty. I love her." But now, Caleb Flynn, the same man on American Idol who talked about how much he loved his wife, is accused of her murder. It is so hard to make sense of it, even though we have seen cases, unfortunately, where family violence like this takes place. Now, I just got my hands on the court filings for this case this morning. Here's the criminal complaint. We'll talk a little bit more about what that tells us here in just a moment. But following Ashley's murder, the other shocking part of this is just how much the community seemed to rally around her family and specifically Caleb. A GoFundMe was launched with this picture showing the entire family, including Caleb. And the caption included, quote, "Please pray for her husband and 2 daughters." The focus, as far as the community was concerned, it didn't appear to be on Caleb. It was on finding this person who he said broke into the home and killed his wife. But then on Wednesday, the local chief, the same person who said that this had appeared to be a burglary gone wrong, called in some help from the FBI. And that appears to be when a lot of things changed. So this chief releases a statement, and it caught our attention because they hadn't released a lot of information, but he called Ashley's murder targeted. And he also said he did not believe that the public was in danger. It's always interesting when law enforcement uses language like that, because if a man broke into the Flynn home and shot and killed Ashley Flynn and then fled and was still at large, why would the public not be in danger? Unless no one broke in at all. Police are not releasing a lot of information still, but it is unclear where the murder weapon was and what the forced entry into the house looked like. Many wondered why Ashley was the one who confronted the person Caleb told authorities had entered the house. Where was he when all of this went down? Why was she the one who confronted this alleged burglar? Now, Thursday night, Caleb Flynn was booked into the county jail just after 5 o'clock local time, and he is facing 1 count of homicide, 2 counts of felonious assault, and 2 counts of tampering with evidence. So here's the criminal complaint, and it alleges that Caleb shot Ashley with a 9mm handgun. Again, it's unclear whether law enforcement have the murder weapon or there were shell casings where they were able to determine that. The alleged murder happened in the early morning hours of Monday, but it is unclear specifically when and how soon after the alleged murder did Caleb call 911. What did he do in that amount of time? Because we know it's being alleged that he tried to cover up the crime scene. Now, the 2 felonious assault charges appear to be for the amount of bullets fired. There is an autopsy of Ashley that is still pending, and the criminal complaint says, in plain letters, that Caleb tried to lead officers astray by staging the crime scene. Flynn made his first court appearance in Ohio Friday morning.
Mr. Flynn, you have several charges here. Count 1 is a murder charge, is a count felony of the 1st degree. Count 2 is 2 and 3 are both felonious assault charges, 2nd degree felonies. Count 4 is tampering with evidence, a 3rd degree felony, and that's count 4. Count 5 is tampering with evidence, a third-degree felony. Mr. Falker?
Your Honor, Mr. Flynn McTinder pleads not guilty and would ask for this matter to be scheduled for a preliminary hearing. Mr. Flynn is residing in Tip City. He doesn't own a commercial flooring company. He is not on probation or community control. He has no other charges pending against him and has no criminal history. We would ask the court to establish reasonable bonds.
Mr. Flynn, we're going to set your case for a preliminary hearing for next week on February 26th at 1 p.m. You do have the right to have an attorney to represent you. If you cannot afford one, you can apply to the public defender's office and they'll determine if you're eligible for a court-appointed attorney. Do you understand all of that?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the court with regards to a bond in this case?
I'm so sorry you cut out there.
Is there anything you'd like to tell the court with respect to bond in this case?
I don't really understand that, so no,
Okay,
sir.
so the court has to establish a bond, sir, to ensure that your appearance, okay? So the court will establish a bond and you have the right to tell me, hey, I'm not a flight risk, I am a flight risk, or anything of that nature. Is there anything you would want to tell me about that?
Sir, I just want to take care of my daughters. I'm not at risk.
I understand. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, the court is going to order a $2 million blanket bond in this case, covering all of your charges. Should you post bond in this case, the court will order that you be on pretrial services electronically monitored house arrest. Furthermore, the court will order that you will have no contact whatsoever, directly or indirectly through a third party with. You are not permitted to speak to them in any way, shape, or form. That includes electronic communications. You are not allowed to communicate through family members whatsoever. Do you understand all of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. We're adjourned. Thank you, sir.
He pleaded not guilty to the charges. His bond was set at $2 million, and he will be on electronic monitoring and house arrest if he's able to post bond. And you saw the emotion there when he's told he will not be allowed to have contact with his children. Now, the celebration of Caleb's wife, his alleged victim, Ashley Flynn, is scheduled for Sunday afternoon. It's at the same church where they used to both be on staff. And now it's a place where a community is coming together. Many who, by the way, stood by Caleb when accusations from the outside started coming in, when you saw people who cover true crime cases and say, well, I've seen this story before because it had to have been the husband. But there were so many people in Tip City, Ohio that said that would not be the case here. But how could anybody suspect a loving husband, a loving father, a man of faith to eventually be accused of what Caleb is now being accused of? Sadly, in this case, what happened is what we have seen in a lot of family violence cases where a husband or a significant other is accused of taking the life of the person they appeared to be closest to and loved the most. As law enforcement continues to piece their case together, there are a lot of rumors online, but we don't officially know yet what the motive is, why this dad, this husband, would allegedly kill his wife in the middle of the night and then stage it all as a break-in turned violent. Joining us now once again to talk about this case is retired police commander Mike King, the host of Profiling Evil and also the host of Gardens of Evil Inside the Zion Society Cult, which we'll talk about a little bit more, which I actually just started listening to, which has been a great listen. We were talking about this case earlier this week when this story broke, and it was, according to police, it appeared to be in their words, burglary gone wrong. And there were signs of forced entry. And then I know we were looking at kind of the neighborhood and what it could mean. And in these cases, I feel like you just see like a lot of the commenters say, well, it's got to be the husband, but everybody swore it would not be. And now he is facing a charge of murder. And it's like, I'm kind of long-winded in talking about this because like it's always shocking when it happens. But then at the same time, you sit back and you see it over and over and over again. And it's like in your career, I mean, what is it about these cases that seem to be, and we don't know the motive yet, but how these things actually happen?
Well, you know, Chris, it's so interesting because you and I talked about this offline when we talked a few days ago about the probability that it's that inner circle. And we kind of touched on it when we spoke in the last episode. And I hope people would go back and listen to that one, because we really explored this idea that statistically, when there is someone who lives a low risk lifestyle, and Ashley Flynn certainly seemed to fit that bill. She left her teaching job. She went home to be a stay-at-home mom, but worked a little part-time at the local school where she coached. But again, all of that is representative of someone living a low-risk lifestyle. She had a close circle of friends. She was active in her church. And all of that, again, low risk, low risk, low risk. And statistically, what we've learned after looking at thousands of violent crimes, especially in intimate homicide crimes like this one appeared, that when someone who is low risk dies, the first thing you have to consider is whether they were a target of whatever that event was, that homicide. And she was shot, which is very, very personal and up close. And statistically, when someone who's low risk is killed, and if they are targeted, then it's usually by someone who is known to them or knows who they are. So it could be as far reaching as a predator who's peeking through the window and creating this fantasy in their mind that they have a relationship. But you have to look inward. And we talked about how you start in the center and you start building outward. And yet, nonetheless, it still is so troubling, especially when you think of domestic violence homicide, which is now being charged, of how that could happen. Now, someone could go from having seemingly reportable, wonderful marriage to the point of murder.
And it's one of those things too, where it just doesn't seem like people saw this one coming. You know, no criminal record from what I can see for Caleb Flynn. The GoFundMe that was raising money for the family. I mean, they have a great community that was around them, like, you know, pictures of him and like the money to help him raise these two daughters who are now without their mom. And like you know, we don't know the details as of yet of like what cracked this case. But I want to talk about the investigation and part of it. Tip City, Ohio, small community. They called in the FBI to help. And I'm sure it is very difficult to trick the FBI, you know, and it appears that there was some sort of sign of forced entry, and he's accused of staging the crime scene. Let's step back and kind of talk about, I think, first, the geography of the neighborhood. And when you approach this case and some of now knowing what we know and what's being alleged, how that kind of factors into all of this.
Oh, I'm really glad you brought that up, because I actually love to talk about the geography. I'm going to pull up something on the screen here for us to share and talk about as I go through this. But what I think is so important in these kinds of cases is that we do examine the geography to kind of see if the stories actually fit. So I'm going to just play this little clip while we're talking here that I created this morning. But this is the neighborhood we're talking about. This is the location of the home. We talked earlier about the fact that this home is on a secluded street. There was really only one true way in without having to wind through some streets. And we're kind of outlining that as we look at this. Yeah. So when we think about someone having to know this specific location, a secondary route, okay, we can live with that. But the thing that gets so important and interesting is when we think about this being staged, the suspect had to go somewhere after him. We knew that police were serving these searches that they were doing with dogs and drones. And so we have this big field that in our last episode we talked about being so important. But as you kind of pan back to give people around the world who are watching an idea where this happened, this is what's important. I just tried to simulate what a Ring camera view shed would look like, or a doorbell camera view shed would look like in that neighborhood. And so as police were investigating this case, they had to immediately start with ideas like, is it possible that someone could have come into this neighborhood undetected? And when you think about the massive number of people who have doorbell cameras, for instance, then we start seeing things that say, well, that doesn't make sense because nobody's out walking along the street. Then you talk about the actual staging, which I think we'll get into. And that's where law enforcement really starts to say, wait a minute, the story's not adding up.
And I think too, and thank you for putting that together, because it's just like a fascinating look into how law enforcement, you know, here's this story from this husband who says his wife was just shot in the house, you know, and then you start asking questions about it, and then you look at it from a view that I don't think a lot of suspects probably think about. They think, if he broke down a door, or that was the sign of forced entry, maybe a window, he might be thinking about that. But then looking at, well, what way would they have gotten into the neighborhood? Which, what does the field tell us? Like, how often have you found that some of these suspects, in cases where they're accused of staging crime scenes, they're not thinking on the 40,000 foot level that the FBI and law enforcement may?
You're right on, because the idea is that if in fact this is all true, the husband is now accused. If it's true, he would have spent a great deal of time probably fantasizing about how he was going to solve this problem and we don't know for sure what the problem was yet, other than he didn't want Ashley around anymore, if it's all true. And when they start fantasizing and working through this process, a couple of things kind of interesting jump out to me in this case. Number one, if his wife is shot and killed in their home, not only does he get rid of a potential problem that he hasn't figured out how to get rid of otherwise through legitimate means, which in effect means he doesn't have to split the assets. He doesn't have to worry about custody. He doesn't have to worry about a lot of things. So he's problem solving in the fantasy. But another side people don't think about is that he also becomes this victim of the crime. So he gets the community rallying around him. He gets the community saying how horrible they feel for him losing his wife in such a tragic way. And so as they're consumed with the fantasy, they forget the component parts that become so critical. Can all of the other evidence outside of your testimony of what happened, does all the other evidence back it up? And that's where these cases really start to fall apart.
When you look at, we know that there was a sign of forced entry, and who knows, the police on Monday, I think they take the approach of, okay, let's listen to this husband, and it's a burglary gone bad. And then they start really digging into the investigation. Like, even with something like that, the signs of forced entry, how do you take what you're looking at on the ground, but then apply it to the story that's being told by this husband about what happened to figure out whether or not it's true?
Yeah, I think you have to look at the case in totality, and maybe the chief made those comments early on that it's a burglary gone wrong because that was an easy way for them to continue to work the investigation. And I have to hope that that's part of what he's doing, because he also makes a comment that I thought was really important. He says, "We don't believe this is a threat to the community. We believe this was contained." Which is telling you that they've got a focus that's taking them somewhere else, but they don't want to alert anyone either, because they may want to be doing some other forensic examination or tracking someone, seeing what they're doing. But as you look at it in totality and you take those things like the map we looked at, the egress and access, the cameras, the lack of evidence to support the idea that it's just an intruder coming in, and then you start looking at the inside of that house and the garage, that door, and we could see them later in some imagery on some news reels that I saw of law enforcement cutting that door jamb out. So I assume it's going to be evidence where they're going to show how that door was broken into. Was it pried? Was it kicked in? But the thing that becomes so interesting, and the thing that we're learning, is that inside that garage, there was a freezer backed up against that door. So not only would that door have to have been kicked in, but then that door would have had to be pushed open enough to push that freezer out of the way to gain access. And then miraculously, he left his weapon in the vehicle. And that weapon is the same weapon that's used to kill this individual. So not only does this predator come in, but they happen to rumble through the vehicle. They happen to find the weapon. They happen to use that weapon, sneak upstairs into the bedroom, and shoot Ashley twice in the head. That's very focused. That is very personal. It has nothing to do with a burglary.
Yeah, and it's one of those, like, when you see a case like this, and this is not, I would say, common, but we've seen examples of it, and you have a suspect in the interrogation room and someone who doesn't have a criminal history, so he's probably never been in this situation before, and he's explaining his story. How do you take what you're picking up from the scene and then get them almost cornered in a situation where you're able to peel back the onion of the story and actually get to the truth?
Yeah. I mean, you start with the interview process and you start asking questions, and you allow the individual to provide an interview response, maybe admissions, not confessions, because we know there were no confessions early on. Whether they have those now or not, we don't know for sure. But you allow those admissions to start coming through. And then you start allowing that conversation to also be challenged and impeached by things like that you might find by searching the deep and dark web on activity that they might have, what they're doing in social media, where their phone is placing them, are their relationships being built out? And there are so many things we don't know about this case, but there's a motivator for this thing, whether it's to just get away and have all the property, or there's some secret relationship on the side that we don't know about. And all of that, I'm sure, will come out. But this is where the real information starts to come together and either corroborate or exclude, and then be used as a way to impeach their testimony.
When you look at cases like this, and there have been some very high profile cases of husbands, or wives, but, significant others doing something like this, and you just sit here and it's just this question of like, how does it get to this point? How does somebody who, in this case too, I always try to not rush to judgment on these because we don't know, but like you looked at the comments and the amount of people saying that the husband did it, and, because we have seen this profile of case before, but then, this community was like, there is just no way. Like, how common have you seen these, that someone can be, accused of something so awful, but then at the same time, publicly facing, you would never guess that they would have had the gene in their body to do something like this.
Yeah, you're hitting it right on the head of the nail, because in profiling, what you do is you look at three personas that we all have. One is that public persona, leading the church choir, being the great guy in the neighborhood who's waving at everybody, the guy who brings chicken soup to the neighbor when they're sick. This is this public persona. It's the same thing as the persona you and I put on when we're doing your show. We're trying to put our best foot forward to say, here's where we are. This is the way I like to be projected. But then we all have a private side too. And it's the place that maybe just our closest associates, our best friend or our spouse get to see when they get to see the warts that we have. And it's the place where they might see us react negatively or in a way that's kind of ugly. And we all have that. And then you have the secret side. And as my mentor used to say, the Tasmanian devil who lives down in the deepest remote parts of our mind, that's saying, this is what I'm going to do. And by golly, I'm going to get away with it.
And it is chilling to think of, the thought process that someone who seems so perfect could have, like even the thought process of doing this, the planning of it, and then following through with it. And we'll learn more information as this case goes on, but it's just, for as common as sometimes these cases can be, like, it is always shocking and never something that feels normal when you see it. And we'll hear his side of the story. We'll see the evidence, as it's being brought forward and what could play out next. Mike King, it's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Before we go, I want to ask about your new podcast. I know episode 3 is now out. What do people need to know?
Hey, Gardens of Evil, Inside the Zion Society Cult. We're season 5 of the American Nightmares podcast series. This is a wildly popular podcast. This is about a cult that I took down many, many years ago when we rescued a bunch of children in that thing. And it's an opportunity for the children, who are now 45 to 55-year-old women and men, to be able to tell their story. For the investigators that were on the scene the day that we raided the compound, to tell their story. It's a way for this thing to come out and hopefully provide some additional healing, but most importantly, to prevent this kind of thing from happening again.
Yeah, I just started listening to it. It's a great podcast. I recommend it. Recommend it to everybody. Mike King, retired police commander, the host of Profiling Evil. Always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Chris.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and now we're streaming on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart.